When you're caught in the grip of depression, it's not just the sadness that hurts, it's the inner war against it. You might tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way. You might judge your thoughts, resist your emotions, or pretend things are fine while crumbling inside. This resistance becomes its own kind of suffering, not the depression itself, but the exhausting effort to not be where you are. This emotional fight back creates a trap. The more you try to push away your pain, the more power it gains. The more you deny what's true in this moment, the fatigue, the heaviness, the numbness, the more disconnected and stuck you feel. Depression feeds on that disconnection. But what if healing doesn't start with fixing how you feel, but by allowing it? Radical acceptance is not giving up. It's giving yourself the permission to stop fighting reality. It's the choice to meet yourself as you are, with honesty and kindness, even when it's messy. In the pages ahead, we'll explore how this practice can dissolve inner resistance, reduce emotional suffering, and become a quiet, powerful path to genuine healing. This video is meant to support, not replace, your healing journey. Nothing here is medical advice, just guidance and reflection. Resistance is a natural reflex when we're in pain. The mind says, "This shouldn't be happening." The body tightens. We fight against our own emotions, believing that if we just try harder to control them or push them away, the discomfort will disappear. But paradoxically, the more we resist our reality, whether it's grief, shame, sadness, or a life situation we wish were different, the more intense our suffering becomes. Resistance adds a second layer of pain, the pain of not being allowed to feel what we're already feeling. This internal fight creates a quiet, chronic tension, like holding your breath emotionally. You may not even realize it's happening, but over time it wears you down. Depression often grows not just from the pain itself, but from the rejection of that pain. The message we send ourselves over and over is, "This feeling is wrong. I shouldn't feel this way. I'm broken because I do." That shame fuels hopelessness, self-judgment, and emotional shutdown. This emotional resistance doesn't just exist in our thoughts. It lives in the body. You might feel it as tightness in your chest, a constant fatigue, or a heaviness in your gut. It shows up in the tension between who you are and who you think you should be. It can lead to dissociation, numbness, or a low-grade despair that colors everything. And it convinces you that your pain is a personal failure instead of a human experience. What's important to understand is that resistance doesn't mean strength. It means struggle. It's exhausting. It keeps you stuck in survival mode. But most people don't realize they're resisting. It becomes automatic. They distract, numb, or criticize themselves out of habit. Recognizing that this pattern is happening, simply noticing it, is the first step toward loosening its grip. That awareness is powerful. When you start to see that the real suffering isn't just in the feeling itself, but in the way you're relating to it, you gain a new kind of freedom. You can begin to shift your question from "How do I get rid of this?" to "Can I be with this?" That shift opens the door to radical acceptance, not resignation, but a more compassionate, honest way of being with what's true. The emotional cost of resistance is high, not because we're weak, but because we've been taught to reject our experience instead of hold it. Learning to meet ourselves differently begins with seeing the toll that resistance has taken. And once you see it clearly, you can begin to lay that burden down, not all at once, but one breath, one moment, one act of kindness at a time. Radical acceptance is often misunderstood. People hear the word acceptance and assume it means surrendering to pain, giving up on change, or passively tolerating things that hurt. But true radical acceptance is the opposite of passivity. It is an act of courage. It asks you to meet life exactly as it is, without trying to numb it, fix it, or flee from it. This is not about liking your pain. It's about facing it honestly and compassionately, without adding layers of resistance or judgment. To radically accept something is to say, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is my reality in this moment. Not because you approve of it, but because denying it only deepens the suffering. In depression, this might look like acknowledging, I feel empty. I feel tired. I don't want to get out of bed. Instead of forcing positivity or pretending you're okay, you allow the truth of your inner world to be seen and heard, at least by you. This type of acceptance softens the grip of shame. When you stop labeling your experience as wrong or broken, you begin to experience a quieter kind of relief. I don't have to fight myself anymore. That internal shift from resistance to presence creates space for your emotions to move instead of getting stuck, space to breathe without pushing everything away, space to be human. Importantly, radical acceptance is not the final destination. It's the doorway. Acceptance doesn't mean staying stuck. It means acknowledging where you are so that any real, grounded change can begin. Without acceptance, any attempt at change is built on denial or self-rejection. With acceptance, healing becomes possible because you're no longer battling reality. You're beginning to cooperate with it. Practicing radical acceptance doesn't mean you stop setting boundaries or that you tolerate harm. It means you stop wasting energy on denying the pain that's already here. You begin responding to yourself with gentleness instead of punishment. And from that gentleness, your strength begins to re-emerge, not the brittle strength of denial, but the grounded resilience of truth. Acceptance, when practiced deeply, doesn't erase pain. It changes your relationship with it. When you're in a state of resistance, every painful emotion becomes a fight. You're not just sad, you're angry that you're sad. You're not just anxious, you're ashamed that you feel this way. But when you stop arguing with your reality and begin to say, this is what's here right now, something powerful happens. The emotional tension starts to soften. The grip of negative thoughts, especially in depression, is tight and repetitive. Thoughts like, I'm broken, this will never change, or I shouldn't feel like this, loop endlessly, feeding despair. But when you meet those thoughts with acceptance instead of resistance, they begin to lose their authority. You might still hear them, but they no longer control you. You become the observer, not the prisoner. This shift from battling what should be to facing what is creates emotional space. You're no longer spending energy on denial or self-judgment, which means you have more capacity to respond with care. You can ask, what do I need in this moment? Or how can I support myself right now? Acceptance opens a door to inner wisdom, not by solving the problem instantly, but by giving you clarity and calm from which better choices can emerge. When emotional overwhelm decreases, your nervous system begins to settle. This isn't just conceptual, it's physiological. Acceptance activates parts of the brain associated with self-regulation, compassion, and perspective-taking. You move out of reactive loops and into a more grounded, responsive state. That's where real resilience is built, not through force, but through presence. People often expect healing to feel dramatic, like a breakthrough. But in reality, healing through acceptance is usually subtle. It feels like a little more breath in your lungs, a little more gentleness in your thoughts, a little more space in your chest. Over time, these small internal shifts create a powerful cumulative change. The beauty of acceptance is that it meets you exactly where you are. And that's where transformation truly begins. Not in some imagined future where everything is perfect, but in the real, raw, complicated now. When you stop trying to force yourself out of your experience and instead allow yourself to be with it fully, you create the conditions for healing, not through escape, but through presence. Radical acceptance is not a switch you flip, it's a skill you grow. Like learning a new language, it requires daily practice and gentle repetition. Most of us have spent years avoiding, judging, or escaping our emotions. Rewiring that response takes time, patience, and consistent tools that bring us back into contact with our experience without being overwhelmed by it. Mindfulness meditation is one of the most powerful tools for this. When you sit with yourself in silence and simply observe your breath, your thoughts, your emotions, you begin to notice a crucial truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. With regular mindfulness, you learn to watch painful thoughts rise and fall without reacting to them. You stop getting swept away by every story your mind tells. This space between thought and response is where acceptance takes root. Alongside mindfulness, compassion practices are essential. Most people suffering from depression or emotional pain carry an inner critic, a voice that says you're not enough, you're too much, you're weak for feeling this way. Compassion work invites you to respond to yourself differently. It might be as simple as placing your hand over your heart and saying, "This is hard, and I'm still worthy of love." Over time, these gestures rewire the brain toward kindness instead of condemnation. They shift your inner dialogue from punishment to partnership. Grounding exercises also play a vital role, especially when emotions surge. Techniques like deep breathing, touching a textured object, feeling your feet on the floor, or naming things you see and hear around you help anchor you in the present moment. When you're caught in rumination or panic, grounding brings you back to the here and now. And the present moment, however imperfect, is the only place acceptance can happen. These tools may sound simple, but their impact compounds over time. Like building muscle, every repetition strengthens your capacity to stay with yourself, not just when you're calm, but especially when you're struggling. You begin to trust that you can survive your hardest emotions without abandoning yourself, and that trust is the foundation of true healing. It's important to note that these practices are not about perfection. You will forget, you will resist, you will fall back into old habits, and that's okay. The practice is not about never judging yourself again. It's about recognizing when you do and choosing a different response. That moment of awareness is the real victory. Many trauma-informed therapies integrate these exact tools: mindfulness, compassion, and grounding, not because they are trendy, but because they are effective. They offer the nervous system a new pattern, not fight, not flight, but presence. And through presence, we begin to reclaim our wholeness. Struggling against reality is one of the most human things we do. We push, we resist, we wish things were different, thinking that if we just try hard enough, we can avoid pain. But that struggle often becomes the very thing that keeps us stuck. It drains our energy, deepens our suffering, and cuts us off from the present moment, the only place where healing can actually happen. Radical acceptance offers another way. It asks us to stop the fight, not by giving up, but by turning toward what's real with honesty and compassion. To say, "This is how it is right now," not as resignation, but as a courageous opening to life as it is. That simple pause, that breath of truth, can begin to dissolve the heavy layers of resistance we carry inside. This practice doesn't erase the pain. Life will still hurt, but radical acceptance frees us from the extra weight we add, the shame, the self-blame, the denial. And in that lightening, we rediscover something quiet but powerful: presence. And through presence, we gain clarity, resilience, and the possibility of peace. You don't have to master this overnight. You only have to begin one moment at a time, one breath, one act of kindness toward yourself. That is where healing lives, not in the escape from pain, but in the gentle, steady willingness to be with it.